One championship remains here in Tourist Trophy, and that is the TT World Series. And already I have decided on precisely what bike it is I'm going to use for this, because I don't think the competition is going to be too hard to beat. I've decided to use the Racing Modified Triumph Daytona 650. And of course, as you might have guessed from the previous episode, I did change over the riding gear again to something that I like personally. And yes, I do also have the Tourist Trophy licensed racing overalls on as well. So let's get on with the TT World Series. Also, I might as well take this time to tell you that I really want to get this channel up to 600 subscribers before the end of the year. Especially since at the time of recording this, I am only 6 subs away from reaching 600 subscribers. So if you can get me up to 600 subs, maybe before the end of the year, then that would be greatly appreciated. Because I do actually feel like that is a reachable target now. Anyway, yeah. Please get this channel up to 600 subs if you can before the end of the year. And I'll be able to keep delivering the content some of you seem to like. So, 7 race championship for the TT World Series as we're heading to Laguna Seca, Suzuka Circuit, Twin Ring Motegi Road Course, Fuji Speedway 05, Sonoma Raceway, Motegi Super Speedway, which of course is the oval, and Ricardo Tormo Circuit of Valencia. So, without further ado, let's go. I'll also make sure to put my phone on silent whilst I'm here, because I heard it vibrate. And we've got an interesting competition here. So we've got an Aprilia RSV 1000R, a Honda CB1300 Super Bowl Door, and a Triumph Speed Triple as our competition for the TT World Series. So either this is going to be a clean sweep, or I'm actually going to have to battle to score this one. But as ever, we'll wait and see. As I'm now heading through the Andretti hairpin for the first time. I do of course have the Tourist Trophy overalls on because I figured that was necessary. And 9.3 seconds to the Aprilia out front, as I'm already catching up to the Triumph, so it looks like this is going to be a pretty easy win from what I can see. Because I have established that I don't think there's really too much of a power deficit between the Aprilia and myself. I'd say the only real place I might have a problem is probably at the Motegi Oval, but everywhere else, I think I'll be fine. So I've now cleared the other Triumph in this battle, the Triumph Speed Triple, and now I cleared the Honda CB1300, and heading through turn 8 now into turn 9, and back on to the front stretch once again to begin lap 2. I think I should be able to catch up to the Aprilia before too long. The gap is only 5 seconds, and I do still have plenty of time to catch up to him. I also know the AI aren't really too strong when it comes to going up against slower bikes, or bikes with less power than what they seem to have. And I am steadily chipping away as the gap is now 4.6 seconds as I head down this backstretch into what's essentially either turn 4 or 5, and now heading up the hill as I head under the bridge, and now onto the Rahal Straight, named after the great racing legend Bobby Rahal, and now into the corkscrew. And to follow this up, there should be Rainy Curve, which is right here. I did also have a look at the course map to find out the corner names. 2.4 seconds is now the gap. I'm steadily closing in on the leading Aprilia. I should have no problems passing him from what I can see. And we are now onto lap 3, and where the gap has now decreased down to just 0.7 of a second. So heading back through the Andretti hairpin once again, as we're now heading up into turn 2. Just trying to see if I can get close enough to the Aprilia. Excuse me, sir. I dip to the outside, sell him a dummy, and I pass him on the inside on the exit of turn 3. So now heading through turn 5 and up to the bridge once again. I'd assume the car park is somewhere inside the bridge, and the gap has now increased to 2 seconds as soon as I pass him. So up the Rahal Straight now, down through the corkscrew, and heading up to Rainy Corner once again, which is where the corkscrew section ends. And now heading through turns 9 and 10. Gap has now increased to 3.7 seconds. So it's fair to say this could very well be a clean sweep if I manage to keep up decent enough pace for the rest of this championship. I know the AI, when it comes to the bikes they use, they don't really bother to pass each other. I know they're basically just going to stay single file, but the only thing that really matters for me is to simply get through this. And that is what I'm trying to do now. As I now head up onto the Rahal Straight once again for the 4th time. Gap is now 5.3 seconds to the Aprilia. And I've gone too deep. I always knew that sooner or later the corkscrew was going to catch me out. So through Rainy Curve once again. I couldn't tell you what driver that corner is named after, but I know it's called Rainy Curve. That's the corner that comes just after the corkscrew. And through turn 10 once again. And doesn't appear as though my brief little off at the corkscrew has affected my pace in any way, because I have pretty much torn myself away from the Aprilia anyway. A little slow through that corner, but able to at least keep it under control as I went under the Bridgestone tyre bridge. And now the gap has increased to 4.5 seconds. I think that's right. Oh, decreased to 4.5 seconds. I was 4.8 seconds up before, from what I remember. Just have to make sure that I am not too greedy when it comes to making it through the corkscrew this time. Caught me out last time, but it's not going to catch me a second time. I know what it is I have to do to avoid it, so heading through Rainy Curve once again. And believe it or not, I've driven 10 miles in this race already. Although then again, Laguna Seca isn't really too long in terms of length. It's normally about, 2.8 miles in distance. And, less than half a second off the fucking best overall time I set. And now I have increased the gap to 6 seconds. And if I don't have another off before the end of this, I reckon I will probably win this by at least 8, 9, maybe even 10 seconds. So the Aprilia is slightly faster than me through those two right-handers, through those two about 90-degree corners, as I now head under the bridge onto the Rahal Straight now, and now heading up the hill into the corkscrew now for the penultimate time in this race. Round 1 of the TT World Series, and I've done it again. Only the second time that's happened, but luckily it was not consecutively. So gap is now down to 4.2 seconds, so providing I don't fall off the bike again twice over on the final lap, then I think I should be able to hold on for the win, the way I see things. And got a little bit loose there with that rear tyre, but able to catch it right before it threw me off guard. I know that oftentimes bikes often tend to cooperate under brakes better when you're steering them, and that's more or less what I seem to be doing. I am very much adjusting myself to the ride height, and I'm also making sure that, for want of a better phrase, I hold on this time. Still, it does surprise me to think that I've only been caught out by the corkscrew twice. So up the Rahal Straight now for the final time, and heading through the corkscrew now for the final time as well. I went a little bit wide there on the exit, but able to keep the bike under control as I get through Rainy Curve. And now all I have to do is head through the last corner, and then I think we should be fine. And on the front stretch now, am I going to improve on my previous best? Yes, I do, by I think 0.3 of a second. I win race 1 by 6.8 seconds over the Aprilia RSV 1000R. And no one else is going to finish. Oh well. So the Honda comes home 3rd, and it's the second Triumph that comes home 4th. Ironically, the same Triumph I used to clean sweep the Monster Series, if you can believe it. But either way, there we go. Race 1 of the Monster Series is now done. And now we move on to race 2 at Suzuka. So, here we go. Just having a sip of my cup of juice that's right alongside me. Gotta stay hydrated as we now head through the first corner And now we are into the snake section, also known as the S-bands, here at Suzuka. Went a little bit deep there, but able to keep a hold of myself. And through this last section of S-bands, I now clear the other Triumph in this field, as I now head through Dunlop, and just gotta let go of the throttle a little bit to get through there at speed. And now through Dagna 1 and also Dagna 2, as I now head up the straight into the hairpin. The gap is 7.5 seconds as I head through to the hairpin and up to the 200R chicane, which is equivalent to a 200-degree radius, and looking to clear the Honda CB1300. I just get past him on the outside as we head through 200R, now into Spoon Corner for the first time. And on now to the backstretch here at this figure of 8 circuit, passing under two sponsors, Panasonic and Dunlop, and heading into 130R, braking from 172 down to about 103, and up now into Casio Triangle, also known as the two chicanes that end off the lap. And now we've got the last corner, which I often like to call Ferris Wheel Corner because of the amusement park that stares over this figure of 8 circuit. And on the front stretch now, approaching it at about 174 so I can get through the corner, and through turn 1 we go once again, now into the snake bands once again, also known as the S-bands of the East configuration. And it looks as though I'm going to clear this Aprilia pretty quickly as we now head up through Dunlop, and just letting go again of the throttle so I can get through the corner. Through Dagna 1, now heading into Dagna 2, and now up the Dagna straightaway right before the hairpin turn. Probably didn't have to shift up into 5th there, as we now head through the hairpin now for the second time, and up to the chicane here at 200R, and under a Suzuka circuit signboard at about 140, going into Spoon Corner, and also heading past some pylons whilst I'm at it in the process. And everything seems okay for now. And heading into 130R once again, slowing down from 172 this time now down to about 107, and heading through Casio Triangle now for the second time, right before the last corner. You can of course see the amusement park right there. There's also a bit of roller coaster there, in case if you do or don't notice, that technically is the amusement park that is right next to this very unique racetrack. And heading through turn 1 once again and into the snake section once again, also known as the S-bands. I'm slowly pulling myself away from the Aprilia that's behind me. And now heading through Dunlop for the third time. And made a little mistake there, but able to stay up on the bike regardless. Was honestly amazed to say that I only got caught out by fucking corkscrew at Laguna Seca twice, when I could have just as easily been caught out by it almost every lap. But I managed to stay on it, as the gap is now 6.8 seconds to the Aprilia. I don't think is going to catch up to me, from what I can see now. Suzuka is of course a longer racetrack than Laguna Seca, so with this game at least, you would expect the margins to be wider, and that's precisely what they are. So heading down the backstretch once again into 130R, and just holding my ground without getting caught out by the curbs into Casio Triangle. Went a little bit deep there, but able to still stand my ground and hold up my guard, and in the process I was only 400ths away from setting a new best lap time, or in effect tying my previous best lap time. Looks like it's only going to be really me and the Aprilia who wind up finishing these races because of just how far ahead we are of everyone else. I really wish there was more action, but unfortunately that's not really possible in this game because, well, the AI in this game, they very much run single file. And yep, I knew Dunlop was going to catch me out sooner or later. I was just waiting to see how long it was before I went a little bit too deep, and then that was it. And I've just done it again. I really hope that's not going to be a sign to come for what's in store with the rest of this race. I really don't want it to come down to that. And I've overshot the chicane. Okay. I really need to get myself back on form now, because that's now 3 wrecks I've had in 1 lap. I need to make sure I limit being the accident-prone rider that I at times have shown myself to be. So on the backstretch once again, I can definitely say this lap has been pretty messy to say the least, because of how I've gone down 3 times on this lap alone, and gap has now decreased to 3.76 seconds. So heading through Casio Triangle once again, and that's now the 4th time I've gone down. Okay, I really need to stop falling off now. I actually need to stay up on the bike, because the Aprilia is now just 2 seconds behind me. I think I'm going to take it cautiously on this lap, just to make sure I get through without any real dramas. I have also noticed there's a bit of wear on my rear tyre, so it's possible to say that could be contributing to why the intervals have gone down. I actually didn't notice there was tyre wear in this race until now, but I can definitely say my rear tyre is taking up quite some damage at the moment, compared of course to my rear tyre. So I think that probably explains why my lap times were getting slower. Although, either way it doesn't really matter because, well, the AI don't really have the aggression to battle with the player in this game anyway, so... This game is mostly easy, from what I can see. And as long as my tyre doesn't fail on me within the last 2 laps, I think I should be okay from what I can see. I can certainly say my pace has not dropped off any. Maybe a little bit wide through 1 or 2 corners, but it's not really enough to stop me from pulling away with this. Even though I can definitely say my rear tyre is taking up a fair chunk of damage right now. But I wouldn't say it's really affecting with my pace too much. I cannot do a wheelie. I thought for sure I could, but unfortunately at this time I cannot. Anyway. And nope, I cannot do a wheelie. I think this bike might be too heavy to pull off a wheelie. Anyway, 2 laps to go. I don't seem to be dropping off too much in terms of my overall pace. Everything at this time seems to be going just fine. Even though my rear tyre is definitely eating up the chunks right now. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens by the time we get to the end of this race. Because I have noticed my lap pace has dropped off a little bit, and I'm going to assume that must be because of the tyre wear. Of course, I am having to get on the brakes earlier because of the tyre wear, and the gap is now 8.3 seconds. It doesn't seem to be affecting my overall pace too much at the moment because I'm still maintaining a pretty steady gap to the Aprilia. He's not really catching me at a rate of knots at this time, but I do have a feeling I might have to switch over to the hard tyres if both tyres wind up turning red, because I can already see my rear tyre is seemingly turning from orange to red. But I don't think it's the rear tyre I really need to worry too much about. I almost lost it there, but I did manage to hold on somehow. So, 1 more lap to go here at Suzuka. My rear tyre, I can also say, is pretty much dead now, but my front tyre is still with me. I'm also having to get on the brakes earlier because my rear tyre is dead. I definitely had a wobble when I went through Casio Triangle on that previous lap, and now I've gone down. Might be because the tyre wear is playing a part as well. I have also noticed my rear tyre is now probably dead, so I really have to be careful on this last lap. It might also be a reminder to tell me to switch over to the hard tyres from here on out, just so I can maintain race speed for the entirety of this championship, because I'm pretty sure my rear tyre is now dead. And I don't think it's going to be any good for another lap by the time I'm done here. I have noticed my pace has dropped off dramatically here at Suzuka. My rear tyre has definitely turned red, so that definitely tells me that my rear tyre is baked. However, my front tyre at this time is still holding up. And gap is now just 5.5 seconds to the Aprilia. So it looks like I am going to hold on for the win here, but as ever, I can never afford to not be cautious. And no wheelie, unfortunately. Oh well, I'm going to assume the bike must be too heavy anyway. But the Aprilia was definitely catching me, because it was only 4 seconds in the end. Fortunately, in spite of me having my falls at the start of the last lap, and also those 4 previous falls I had on, I think it was the 3rd lap, was it? Yeah, the 3rd lap. I did manage to hold on and score the win. So those are your point standings after 2 races in the TT World Series. And I think that's also a reminder to tell me to switch over to the hards by the time we're done here. I also know that this is not going to be where I save the replay, but I figured it was worth a look to see what places I haven't been to recently. Oh, well, I could have saved the replay at Laguna Seca if I really wanted to, but I chose not to. Anyway, it's fine. We still have 5 more races to go anyway. So it's not like I'm exactly pressed for time, as we are now at Twin Ring Motegi for race 3. And I think before we get on with this, I'm going to switch over to the hards, because I'm convinced in saying that tyre wear might be an issue here. So I'm going to switch to the hards, because I figure the rest of these are going to be a serious test on tyre wear from what I can see. So 2 races, 1 and done, and let's try and see if we can get these other 5 races 1 and done. As already I have a brief little bounce, but I'm going to assume that must be because the tyres are cold, but I switched over to the hard tyres for this because I figured, well, while the hard tyres may have less grip, they do also have a longer lasting life to them than the mediums do. And I get bumped from behind. Understandable, but anyway. So I figure as we go further and further through this race, I should be able to give myself a bit more leverage in terms of distance to catch up to the leaders, and also to hold on to my bike for longer. Because I can definitely say, last time out at Suzuka, my tyres were very nearly chewed. It also wouldn't have been long before my front tyre would have been about as chewed up and spat out as my rear tyre was. and I run into the back of the Honda. Oh well. So heading through the S-curve, and I have now cleared the Honda. And it looks like we are doing okay here. Yeah, I'm pretty convinced in saying that this bike is maybe too heavy to perform a wheelie. But as ever, I am willing to try. So gap is now 3.6 seconds to the Aprilia in front. Of course, as you might have guessed, my tyres are getting up to temperature. So let's see how we go. Unfortunately, I have not looked at the Motegi road course map to know all the names of the corners, unlike Laguna Seca and Suzuka. Unfortunately. So heading through the hairpin, now onto the backstretch, and the gap is now down to 2.5 seconds. Just getting on the brakes in time. And I'm steadily closing in on the Aprilia RSV in front of me, as I now set a 2:01.25. But my overall lap speed is still pretty impressive, and although the hard tyres may have less grip than the medium tyres, they also last longer than the medium tyres, which is why at this time they are still green. And now the gap is half a second, and I get a bump from behind. I'm starting to get used to that. Just figured I'd make sure that the pass I pull on the Aprilia is a clean one. I did pass him on the inside. I also very much had the run to pull off the pass. And now it looks like I have cleared him. Took me nearly 3 full laps to get there, but I did manage to get the pass done. I think I might be stepping on the brakes a little bit too soon through some of these corners, which is why I've been bumped from behind a few times. But anyway. Still keeping on tabs with where the bike wants to go, and also where I want to go. And hopefully that will be a promising sign of things to come for the rest of the championship. As I now have 3.1 seconds over the Aprilia. So I'm slowly pulling away, but at the same time, I'm not really pulling away by too much, because of the limited grip I have. But either way, these tyres are still made to last. And that's what I think needs to be done. So 4.1 seconds is the gap to the Aprilia. And now we head through this complex sequence of corners again. And up now into this sharp left-hander, and now through the hairpin, and we're doing alright. And I almost fell off the bike, but either way, I do manage to hold on, regardless. So, heading through the final corner, jink to the left and jink to the right, and we are now 4 laps in to Twin Ring Motegi. And now heading down the second stretch. I believe this is also the place where they technically hold the MotoGP Japanese Grand Prix, if I'm not mistaken, at Twin Ring Motegi. And a little bit of a hop there from the rear tyre, but not enough to put me off guard. We are on lap 5. And everything for now seems to be okay. As I am continuing to pull away from the Aprilia. And clipped the outside curbs there just a little bit, but able to still stay in control. And 4.7 seconds is currently the gap. So I'm not leaving too much of a gap to the Aprilia, but I'm slowly nipping away from the Aprilia. And only a 10th and a half off my previous best time. So not pulling away by too much at the moment, but then again, I don't expect myself to pull ahead by too much, because I am very much playing the long game when it comes to tyre conservation. And so, gap is now 6 seconds to the Aprilia. And I am slowly nipping away, as I said before. It looks like the Triumph Daytona 650 is going to score 3 wins in a row. And so, we move on. So far, so good. May not be pulling away by much, but at least I'm pulling away by enough. And is this going to be a new best lap time? Not quite. Anyway, final lap of race 3 in the TT World Series as I run wide through turn 1. So heading down the second straightaway of the lap, and now into turn 2 and turn 3, and up another straightaway as what follows next is a right-hander. And 6.5 seconds is now the gap, so I'm not pulling away by too much over the Aprilia, so he is somewhat keeping tabs with me, even though he's not exactly racing me, but either way, I will give him kudos for keeping tabs with me. And the gap is 6.5 seconds to the Aprilia. As I now head through the final hairpin and now onto the back stretch before we go onto the front stretch. Trying to see if I can set a new personal best lap time, which is basically what my aim is to do. And we'll see how we do. Is this going to be enough to set a new best lap time? Not quite. Even though I was trying, I just didn't quite get there in the end. Oh well, it's fine. I still win by 6.8 seconds in the end anyway, so it doesn't really matter. 6.8 seconds is the gap to the Aprilia, and that's now 3 wins in a row for me, and the Triumph Daytona. So 30 points to me, 18 points to the Aprilia, 12 points to the Honda, and 9 points to the Speed Triple. Okay, 3 races down, and we still have 4 races to go. So, let's now move on to race number 4. Fuji Speedway. This could be interesting, but hopefully speed will not hurt me too much if I do wind up hitting the speed limiter a few times. I'm also pretty sure this is the only time we actually get to race on the revamped layout of Fuji. Of course, I know in GT4 we get to race on the revamped Fuji Speedway livery many times, but in this game, however, I think we only get to do it once in terms of the career mode. And there, of course, is Mount Fuji. Of course, I did not look at the circuit layout for Fuji before coming into this, so unfortunately most of these corners I do not know the names of. However, I do know that very awkwardly placed chicane right here, and I somehow pulled off a very gutsy overtake inside the chicane that somehow worked. I can assure you, I would never do that in a race car, but on a race bike, however, well, it's definitely possible, as I have just proven. And almost making contact with the Honda. I also lose out a little bit on the entry to the home stretch, but I think I should be okay from what I can see. So what's the gap going to be? Okay, 7 seconds. And my top speed is 183 from what I can see. And the Honda is trying to do the switcheroo, but he's not going to, because I have now cleared myself from him. And also, I have established that I am slightly stronger than the Aprilia through the corners anyway, so I don't think I'll have too many problems catching him, from what I can see. I do have the durability of the tyres to help me out, and I am pretty sure this is going to be a hard-fought win. That was an amazing save. I did not think I was going to save this bike the way I did, but I somehow pulled it off. I kind of felt like Marc Marquez pulling off that save. That was just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable is what that was. Especially since I was doing it at about 140 miles an hour. Which on a motorcycle, and now the rear tyre has betrayed me. After thinking I was actually going to be saved by one save, the rear tyre decides, no, fuck you, and just kills me anyway. In spite of the grim fate, I did still manage to close up about 1.5 seconds to the Aprilia. And I can definitely say, out of all the tracks we've been to so far, Fuji, from what I can see, definitely appears to be the fastest. Just in terms of that front straightaway alone, because of just how fast it is. This is definitely the fastest track we've been to so far. And off on the grass again, but able to save it, as I did before. And hopefully this time I will not be a victim of using too much brake lock, like I was before. And on the brakes early for the fuck you chicane, as some sim racers like to call it, because of just how much of a bitch it is to get through that one chicane. Although there is also an alternative layout where you don't have to go through the chicane on the alternate layout. The chicane, I think, is taken out of the equation on the other 2005 layout. Of course, I'm pretty sure this is the GT layout, not the alternate layout. And I have braked way too early. But it doesn't matter because I'm still catching up to the Aprilia nonetheless. And I think it's fair to say this is going to be a hard-fought win by the time I manage to pass him. He definitely seems to be putting up a fight here for the win from what I can see. So this race, from what I can tell, it is far from over. And I am going to have to get the hammer down if I want to catch him. Which is precisely what I have done up to this point. Just slowly but surely nipping away at the gap. And hoping that I can manage to put you into his lead. Going a little bit faster that time through the chicane, and it just fucked me over anyway. Yeah. I think I can understand why a lot of people refer to that as being the fuck you chicane, because of just how easy it is to get caught out by it. It really is just one of those death corners if you get it wrong, essentially. And I do understand why a lot of sim racers do get incredibly frustrated when they don't seem to get it right through that one corner. I'd imagine drivers no doubt have similar problems with the chicane as well, but I'm going to assume there is a reason why it's there. And I think the Aprilia is just a little bit faster than me, but that's okay because I still have 3 more laps to catch him, and then to realistically chase after what could be 4 wins in a row. But either way, this race is pretty good, and I can definitely give the Aprilia kudos for challenging me. I'm also pretty sure he's wearing street clothes from what I can see. But either way, I do manage to pass him. And I think we should be okay. Yeah, you've really got to be careful through that chicane. It really is just one of those chicanes that basically will kill you if you get it wrong. And that has happened to me a few times. I do understand why a lot of sim racers technically tend to call that the old fuck you chicane. So, through the final corner now. I did also mention a while ago, or more or less, well, a few months ago now, but I think I did mention something about Fuji Speedway not being too far from Tokyo itself. And gap is 4 seconds now to the Aprilia, so it looks like I'm now slowly but surely pulling away. And I think by the time I'm done with this race, I might go and fill up my cup before the last 3 rounds of the World Championship, and now I've gone down. Well, I can certainly say there has been a lot of mistakes in this game from what I can see. Well, a lot of mistakes in this race alone, I should say. And yep, the chicane has caught me out again. But this time, I manage to stay on the bike. I don't fall off. I don't fall off or pull up. I manage to stay on top of it, which is where I need to be. And the Aprilia is still right behind me, so this race is not over yet. But it's fair to say that I am just managing to pull away from him because of my superior cornering speed, and now I've gone a little bit too deep and I've fallen off again. Fortunately, however, the tyres are still in good nick, so we have not experienced any tyre wear issues this time around, but I think up to this point we should be okay. Although I can definitely say the Aprilia has been making this a close one. And I've fallen off again. How many times have I fallen off now? Is that 5 or 6? Well, anyway. It's definitely turned this into a fight for the win now, because the Aprilia is just behind me. And I highly doubt this is going to be a race won by skill. It's going to be won by mostly luck, because of how superior the players' overall speed is through the corners compared to the AI. But altogether, this race has definitely been a messy one, to say the least, and it's also been a long one, as have all the others. But it doesn't matter, because I am going to hold on. And I still cannot pull off the wheelie, unfortunately. 4 seconds in the end over the Aprilia. So, had a few scares there, but able to more or less hold on for the win either way, and in all honesty, I can definitely say that race was close for most of the way. I really had to battle just to get myself to the front, but either way, there we go. Those are your point standings now after 4 races, and I think what I might do is actually save this replay, because I do not have a replay saved at the 05 layout of Fuji yet. I figured I might as well do that. Also because I want to. So that's what I'm going to do. I will save my replay here at Fuji Speedway. And now that I am done with this, I'm going to fill up my cup, and then, once I get back, we'll be here to finish the TT World Series. Okay, I have now topped up my cup, and I am ready to go for the last 3 races of the TT World Series. As I was able to win what was more or less a thrilling battle against the Aprilia for most of that race. But either way, I still won, and now we have just 3 races to go, as we've got Sonoma, Motegi Oval, and Valencia to finish off this championship. So, here we go. With only 3 races to go now. 7 laps around Sonoma, 10 laps around the Motegi Oval, and 7 laps again around Valencia. And then after that, we should pretty much be done. So 7.4 seconds is the gap. Of course, Sonoma Raceway, as you might have guessed, is in Sonoma County, which by the way is in California, also known of course as Wine Country, if you can believe it. So we're through the carousel now, and everything seems to be okay. I do manage to get a pretty solid exit, as I now head up the hill through to the Asses now, as I head through these right-handers. Of course, the stock car course is not available to race on in this game, unfortunately. 5 seconds is now the gap as I head through the S's. We're very much on the motorcycle course here, and now through the chicane. I just managed to thread the needle through. I get a little bump from behind by the Honda, but I do manage to hold my ground nonetheless. Or as it was known at the time, Infineon Raceway. I'm going to assume that's what the sponsor must have been. Although, previously this course was also known as Sears Point International Raceway, when it first opened in 1989. It was mainly built for the NASCAR Cup Series when it first made it onto the NASCAR schedule in, ironically, 1989, when they actually hosted the first ever race here. And the winner of that race, if you're asking, was Ricky Rudd. It was definitely a unique racetrack, to say for sure, but either way, Sonoma, as well as just California in general, it's definitely given itself its shining spot on the West Coast for NASCAR every time it comes out to Sonoma County in California. And yes, I should also mention they do technically sell a lot of wine in Sonoma County, which is partly the reason why they call it wine country in the first place. And I'm having no such dramas this time around in terms of catching up to the Aprilia, because I have caught up to him at a very pacey rate of knots. As I pass him up the inside, we head through the final hairpin and now onto the front stretch we go once again, as we head through turn 1 under the Fram Autolite banner, which is on the bridge, and through turn 2, now heading up to, I think this is turns 3 and 4 if I'm not mistaken. And now down the hill once again for turn 5, I think this is, right before the carousel. Most of these corners don't have names. That's turn 6. So this is the carousel now. It's either turn 7 or turn 8. I don't know how many corners there are here at Sonoma to be sure, but I have driven around this course enough times to know my way around it. I should also mention the driver with the most wins, from what I know here at Sonoma, I think is Jeff Gordon, because I'm pretty sure he won here at Sonoma either 4 or 5 times over the course of his extraordinary career. He was definitely the road course master for a select number of years, and he was basically the NASCAR dominator in the mid and late 90s. The races he won during that time were just extraordinary. And it's also fair to say that he does have 5 wins in the Brickyard 400 as well, which by the way is held at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Still, the number of accolades that Jeff Gordon has on his resume, especially here at Sonoma, you'll find out that it is just extraordinary. And it is fair to say that he will most likely stay as the 3rd winningest driver in NASCAR. And I think it's fair to say that most likely no one up to this time at least, where NASCAR is very much a parity-based sport, I don't think anyone is ever actually going to meet Jeff Gordon's record, let alone eclipse it. Although recently Bobby Allison was actually handed what was ultimately a cup win that should have been handed over to him all along, but for whatever reason, at Bowman Gray Stadium in 1971, I couldn't tell you what the reason was for, but a race that, in all honesty, Bobby Allison should have won all along. It took him basically up to this year, if you can believe it, 53 years after the race itself happened, when they actually, and rightfully, gave Bobby Allison what was realistically his 85th career win, or basically adding his career wins total up to 85. And only Jeff Gordon has managed to pass that in the modern era. And the only two drivers who are really ahead of Jeff Gordon in terms of the all-time wins list in NASCAR would basically have to be the Silver Fox, David Pearson, and of course NASCAR's the King himself, who, as a lot of you will know in motor racing history, as of course being Richard Petty. A man who has a number of figures that will quite simply never be toppled. And what's even more impressive is knowing that Richard, believe it or not, also won the Daytona 500 7 times. No one has even come that close to breaking Richard's 7 Daytona 500 crowns. The man for most of his career just could not be stopped when he was really putting on clinical performances. But oftentimes, aside from him dominating a lot of races, which has typically been the King's calling card, it's also fair to say that there has been plenty of moments throughout his career where he's had to earn a lot of the race wins he's gotten. He has more than truly earned his name as the King. And it's also fair to say that almost nobody in NASCAR history will realistically be able to eclipse the number of race starts he's had. Because he basically raced full-time in NASCAR from about 1959, I think it was, up to 1992. He quite literally spent more than 30 years competing in NASCAR, and it is fair to say that his records will quite simply never be toppled. Oh yeah, I think he also had 5 road course wins as well at Riverside, if I'm not mistaken. Which, by the way, was the road course that Sonoma, as we know it today, would eventually wind up replacing. Figured I'd just give you bits of NASCAR trivia that's probably not relatable to the subject at hand. But either way, Riverside Raceway was definitely a track in the middle of California. And it is fair to say that it did know how to draw in a crowd as well. Unfortunately, Riverside Raceway does not exist anymore because, well, where the track itself once was, in terms of its geographical position, that's now been replaced by a shopping mall. But yeah, in terms of the winningest drivers at Sonoma Raceway, I would say the top 2 would probably have to be Jeff Gordon and Tony Stewart, from what I know, in terms of wins they've had here at Sonoma. They were definitely road course aces, as they call them in NASCAR at the time. And it is fair to say that they definitely had impressive racing backgrounds as well, to be as good at the road courses as they were. Of course, Tony Stewart, before he joined NASCAR, he was also an IndyCar champion. Although he never won the Indy 500, he was technically an IndyCar champ before he became a NASCAR champ. Which is something I should mention that's also impressive about Tony. And this time, my guy does not go headfirst into the concrete wall. And I think for that entire race, I actually stayed up on the bike, so I did not fall off. Is anyone going to make it? Nope, doesn't look like it. So these are the riders' points after 5 rounds of the TT World Series. It's looking more and more like it's going to be a clean sweep for me, as I now have a 20-point cushion over the Aprilia. The Honda still runs third, and it is the Triumph Speed Triple who is at the very back. And it looks like the points are very much going to be scored single file. Unless Motegi manages to throw up any curveballs. But either way, there we go. Another race is done. Now let's move on to the oval. I don't know if I will or won't need any extra speed here, but we'll wait and see how we do. We've got 10 laps around Motegi, so hopefully this won't be too much trouble. I'm also pretty sure the Aprilia is not going to be too much faster than me from what I can see. So I think we should be okay. Even if we don't win, I think we should be okay here. Because I have established speed is not as much of a problem here as a lot of people may think it is. Even though this track basically is in the same shape as the Darlington Raceway. But either way, we are here at the Egg and looking to see if we can tame this track, as the first time I set is a 45.06. Unfortunately, they don't use the oval anymore because, well, since the 2011 tsunami basically ripped through Japan, the oval of Motegi has pretty much been out of commission. And they have not decided to rebuild it ever since. Not really many notable moments here at this track, but one I do know that is notable and is one that will forever be steeped in racing history, it will probably have to be when Danica Patrick managed to win here during her IndyCar career, which, for want of a better phrase, is what a lot of people prefer to know her for, rather than her hideous NASCAR career, which is eventually what she wound up doing. But either way, Danica Patrick did manage to make a name for herself because she did win here. I think that was also the only win she had in IndyCar as well, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, regardless of whether you like her or hate her, you have to admit, she did steep her name into the racing record books as being a female driver who also went on to become a winner. Anyway, 2 tenths now behind the Aprilia. I shoot up the inside through turn 1, making sure that I stay in control of my bike. There should be enough banking here to get me through the corner. I'm definitely engaged in a dogfight at the moment with the Aprilia, and it looks as though speed is not going to be a problem here. Because although I'm going right towards the speed limiter, I am of course managing to still hold my ground either way, as I now have an advantage by 0.6 of a second, as we are now halfway through the Motegi Oval Race. This is going to be a tight one, but I should be able to pull it off, from what I can see. I have established speed is not too much of a problem here, and because this is virtually an endurance race, it's looking more and more like I should be able to pull this off. It might also be possible for everyone to actually finish this race as well, because when it comes to oval racing, the field is a lot closer, because typically we are much faster, and also because, well, oval tracks are a lot shorter than most other racetracks, for want of a better phrase. But anyway, 7 laps down here at the Motegi Oval, and 1.7 seconds is now the gap to the Aprilia. So, as I have done so often here, I continue to pull away yet again, and it looks like this time I'm more or less going to do it in convincing fashion. Even though I can certainly say that I've had some wins in the past that were taken by me in very unconvincing fashion. But either way, sometimes if you have to win ugly, you have to win ugly. It's not like every sim racing win you're going to get is necessarily going to be with any serious chart light-ups or any real panache. You basically just have to go out there and do your job. A lot like what Malcolm Butler did for the Patriots during Super Bowl 49 in 2015. When he was able to make that game-deciding interception that ultimately sealed the Super Bowl that year for the Patriots. Oh yeah, I should also mention Tom Brady was ironically the quarterback on that day as well, when New England beat the Legion of Boom on that day, who at the time of course were the Seattle Seahawks. And they've never quite been as dominant since Richard Sherman departed. But either way, I will establish the Seahawks are still a good team nonetheless. Even then, of course, if that one interception hasn't exactly given them another shot at the Super Bowl ever since. Hey, everyone finished. This is more or less what I expected. But either way, there we go. It looks like we had some actual racing for once, because the field was not entirely split up. So, 6 out of 7 wins to me, 6 out of 6 runner-ups to the Aprilia, 6 out of 6 bronze placed finishes for the Honda, and 6 fourth placed finishes for the Triumph. Well, sucks to suck, I guess. Anyway, sometimes you just have to do your job, and that's pretty much what I did in that race. Anyway, we are now here at Valencia for the 7th and final race of the TT World Series, and where I do also have a map of the course as well. And if it is possible, I might also be able to basically go into the full window size of the map itself, and then I'll be able to tell you each of these corners. So here we are through Doohan Corner, named of course after the great motorcycle legend Mick Doohan, who won 5 MotoGP titles in the 90s. And immediately it looks like I am in trouble. But either way, I think we should be okay once the race really gets going, because that's more or less the way I've been able to win these races before. So the gap is 7.9 seconds to the Aprilia. I have plenty of time to catch up to him before the end of this. Ironically, that is the same Aprilia that I used to win the Superbike 1000 championship a while ago now. And 6.3 seconds is now the gap. I have to pause this race for a moment just so I can get the full course map up. And so I can tell you the names of each of these corners without having to be put off too much. So that's now the completion of lap 1, and 5 seconds is the gap to the Aprilia, and it looks as though we should be okay. And up to this point, I think we're okay. And got off onto the grass just a little bit there, but able to save the bike from going over. I think I'll also pause this for a moment just so I can get the full course map loaded onto my computer screen. So 2.7 seconds is now the gap. I am steadily nipping away at the interval between myself and the Aprilia. I'm also amazed to say up to this point that the rear tyre has only betrayed me once in this entire championship. I mean, yeah, sure, I know I've gone down a fair number of times, but none of them have actually been caused, well, for most of them at least, none of them have actually been caused by the rear tyre basically pulling a wheel hop and then just quite simply causing me to wreck, because most of the time the accidents have pretty much been self-inflicted. But either way, I'm going to assume there's some sort of caricature to that sort of wheel hop. Anyway, through Doohan Corner we go, and I have now taken the lead here in Valencia. And this should pretty much put a statement on the rest of this championship, to say that I will very clearly get the clean sweep, as I am already 2.3 seconds ahead. And I think once I'm done with this lap, I might as well pause the game and get the full course map loaded up, so I can tell you the names of each of these corners. Unfortunately, I did not do that for Fuji Speedway, but either way, I might consider doing that another time. So, through Sector 2, 3.5 seconds is now the gap. and up to this point, we seem to be doing okay. And now, I will load up the Valencia course map. Okay, I think I found an example of one now, or at least an example of one that'll work. So, beginning lap 4 now, here in Valencia, and I have gone too deep into Aspar, the name of turn 1 on this course, and up to Dewan Corner, which is turn 2, and this sequence of corners does not have a name from what I know. Of course, I am not using Wikipedia's images because, well, personally I don't want to. And through that pair of, I think they were right-handers if I'm not mistaken, and now heading up through what is Nieto Corner. I'm going to assume these corners are no doubt named after motorcycle legends. Of course, I know Mick Doohan was definitely a motorcycle legend because, as I said before, he is a 5-timed MotoGP champion. I couldn't tell you what his nationality is, but I do know he's a legend. Anyway, up now to Curve Herreros, the second to last corner, and now we are heading through Campos Corner, the final corner here in Valencia to send off the lap. Typically most years, Valencia is where the MotoGP Championship ends, although this year, however, it ended in Barcelona, where I believe it was Jorge Martin who went on to win the title over Francesco Bagnaia, also known as Paco Bagnaia. And it is fair to say they, along with Marc Marquez and I think the other one was Enea Bastianini, but all 4 of those riders, from what I know, they basically signified the absolute dominance of what the Ducati was basically able to do in all but one race weekend over the course of the year. The only time a Ducati didn't win in the 2024 MotoGP Championship was at COTA, Circuit of the Americas, where it was Maverick Vinales who, with his very impressive reputation, went on to win a MotoGP race riding for his 3rd manufacturer, and that happened to be an Aprilia, believe it or not. So it looks as though the Aprilia is going to come second in all 7 of the TT World Series races as we head through Campos Corner for the 5th time. Still got 2 laps to go here at Valencia, and the odds of me losing this race are getting slimmer and slimmer by the laps as we head through Aspar and now Dewan Corner for the penultimate time in this race as well as in this championship. And now we head through these 2 right-handers and up the hill now into Nieto Corner, which is turn 5, I think. No wait, turn 6. And now down the stretch we head, and going through Afsion Corner, which I believe is turn 7. Got a little bit distracted there by looking at the image, but able to hold on. And through this section of corners now, I'm going to assume this must just be a hairpin. And now, down the stretch we go, and into Herreros corner, the penultimate corner of this lap, and the gap is now 5.7 seconds to the Aprilia. I could have used the Ducati if I really wanted to, but since I've already used the Ducati, I figured I'd just use the Triumph instead. So, we've now just gone through Campos corner for the penultimate time as we begin the final lap of the TT World Series. So heading through Aspar now for the final time, as I once again get on the curbs. Tyre wear is seeming to eat into the hards at the moment, and heading through Duin corner now, I'm very much managing my expectations pretty well here, and in all honesty, aside from maybe 2 races, this has mostly been a smooth sailing championship. As I now head through Nieto corner for the final time, and now heading into corner Afsion. I hope I'm saying that right. And now through this sequence of corners, hopefully we should be okay. So just got to jink to the left and then jink to the right. I also noticed a Ford sponsor there for a moment. And now heading into corner Champi Herreros for the final time. And gap is closing just a little bit, but I am holding on by a wide margin as we now head through Campos corner for the final time. And on the front stretch we go, and is this going to be a new best lap time? Yes it is. A 1:43.18 in the end. We end off the TT World Series with a fastest lap, and a 7.6 second margin of victory. So there we go. I win! I also sweep the TT World Series easily. Well, mostly easily. But there we go. It's done. 70 points. A perfect score. 42 points to the Aprilia, 28 points to the Honda, and 21 points to the Triumph. Well, the second Triumph. So there we go. I sweep the championship using my Triumph Daytona 650. And I already have a replay saved because I saved it at Fuji. And now we move on. So 70 points to me, 42 points to the Aprilia, 28 points to the Honda CB1300 Super Bowl Door, and 21 points to the Triumph Speed Triple. And now we move on, and I think we should also get the credits here whilst we're at it once we get our prizes. But we'll wait and see. So, for winning the TT World Series, we get the 7 Honda CBR 1000 RRW, the Suzuka 8-hour exclusive, a bike which we have now acquired, and we have also got the riding gear as well, the 7 Honda Kiyonari Suzuka 8-hour. And of course, we can also select the racing helmet as well in our riding gear. Nice. Okay, moving on, and I think after this we should get the credits. Anyway, let's move on. Oh yeah, first and foremost I should put on the racing number, since we do get the exclusive number 1. You know what? I'm gonna do that now, because I can. The number will now be changed from 24 to 1. Are you sure you wish to proceed with this change. Yes. Okay, now we get the credits. Alrighty, so those were the credits, and I gotta say, pretty good altogether, if I do say so myself. But either way, there we go. So that's what we get for winning the TT World Series. And, as well as that, we also get this exclusively designed number 1 for winning. And I gotta say, this goes really well with my Triumph, if I do say so myself. And it's very well designed as well. But there we are. Clean sweep of the TT World Series. However, that's not all. Because, well, we do get something else that follows up from the TT World Series. As we get the very exclusive Special Machine Festival. Once we are done with all of the other events, we get one last bonus event in the Special Machine Festival. And all of these, of course, are the Suzuka 8-hour exclusive bikes. We basically need to use any one of those in order to enter this. And I, of course, will be making sure to do that. However, before we get on with that, let's check out our new stats. So, we've got our 23rd and final race event now unlocked. We have done all the championships now, and ultimately, that has now moved my progress up to 97.2%. I don't know how much progress we gained overall because, well, that championship took me nearly 2 hours to get through. But either way, we are just 2.8% away from completing the game. So, let's go and check out our new prize bike, the 7 Honda CBR 1000 RRW Suzuka 8-hour exclusive. And I'm going to assume the reason why the barcode is there is because it censors a tobacco brand. Most likely, anyway. Someone might be able to tell me in the comments which one that is, but I have a feeling it's a cigarette brand of some sort. Could even be Mild 7, I think it is. I don't know. Anyway. That's what we win for completing the TT World Series. And if I head back to the status screen now, you will notice that we have acquired all 5 of our Suzuka 8-hour exclusive bikes. And you know what? I'm okay with that. As we are now up to 249 bikes overall in our garage. And you know what? I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch over to the Kawasaki Ninja for our first Special Machine Festival race. Because, well, I figured why not. And of course we have to use the exclusive riding gear as well. But either way, this is the bike we're using first. The Trickstar ZX-10R for our first Special Machine Festival race. So, next time on Tourist Trophy, Special Machine Festival.